Bruno Richard Hauptmann. He has been convicted of kidnapping and murdering this child, the firstborn son of Charles Lindbergh.
The Lindbergh kidnapping is one of the most notorious cases of the 20th century. As a direct result of the case, U.S. Congress passed the Federal Kidnapping Act, popularly known as the Lindbergh Law.
Mr. Chairman, I urge passage of the Lindbergh Law, making kidnapping a federal offense, to immediately deliver all the...
The act granted federal law enforcement the power to purse kidnappers who travel across state lines with victims. Today we're going to take a look at the haunting circumstances around the infamous Lindbergh baby kidnapping. In 1927, Lindbergh became the first person to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, without taking a single stop, using his single engine from New York to Paris, and this made his name into the history books. While he'd become controversial as the 1930s wore on, Lindbergh was still considered an American hero, which made his son's kidnapping a front-page story from the outset. Charles Augustus Lindbergh Jr. was taken from his crib at the family home in Hopewell, New Jersey by a home invader at around 9 p.m. on March 1st. Lindbergh and his wife Anne were home at the time, relaxing downstairs under the assumption that their son was fast asleep. At about 10 p.m., the child's nurse discovered that Charlie Jr. was missing from his crib, then frantically alerted Lindbergh and Anne. A window next to the crib had been left open, with a ransom note left resting on the windowsill. During the search at the kidnapping scene, traces of mud were found on the floor of the nursery. Footprints impossible to measure were also found. 2 sections of the ladder had been used in reaching the window. One of the 2 sections was split or broken where it joined the other, indicating that the ladder had broken during the ascent or descent. There were no bloodstains in or about the nursery, nor were there any fingerprints. As soon as 10:30 p.m. that evening, news stations were broadcasting the story to the nation. The New Jersey State Police assumed charge of the investigation, headed by Colonel H. Schwarzkopf, the father of Gulf War leader. Schwarzkopf was appointed by none other than FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. Dr. John F. Condon, a retired Bronx schoolteacher, as the intermediary between himself and the kidnapper. On March 10, 1932, Condon commenced negotiations with the kidnapper using the alias Jaffe. Condon met with the alleged kidnapper, a man who called himself John, on several occasions at a Bronx cemetery. During their final meeting, April 2nd, a $50,000 ransom was handed over to John, in exchange for the safe return of Lindbergh Jr. Instead, a note was given to Condon. It claimed that the boy was safe and aboard a boat, named Nellie, off the coast of Massachusetts. The boat was never found. Then, on May 12, 1932, the body of the missing boy was discovered. A truck driver had accidentally stumbled upon his partially buried remains approximately 4 miles away from the Lindbergh residence. A coroner determined the boy had died from a blow to the head and been dead for about 2 months. The following events would prove crucial in search for Lindbergh Jr.'s killer. First, in 1933, as a result of the Depression, an executive order was enacted stating that all gold certificates be returned to the Treasury. It so happened that about $40,000 of the Lindbergh ransom money was in the form of these certificates. It was surmised, before the ransom delivery, that anyone in possession of that amount of gold certificates would draw attention to themselves. After the enactment of the executive order, this would prove especially true. Second, the serial numbers of the banknotes had been meticulously recorded prior to the ransom handoff. During the manhunt, all New York City branch offices were given pamphlets containing the serial numbers of the Lindbergh ransom notes and advised to be on high alert for any matches. Investigators got their big break when a New York bank alerted the New York Bureau Office to report the discovery of a $10 gold certificate. The certificate was tracked back to a gas station. A filling attendant had received the certificate from a man whose description was strikingly similar to that of others of a man passing Lindbergh notes in recent weeks. The attendant, finding the $10 gold certificate suspicious, wrote the man's license number on the bill. This led the police to Richard Hauptmann, a German-born carpenter. A search of Hauptmann's home uncovered $14,000 of the Lindbergh ransom money, wood identical to that used to make the makeshift ladder, and John Condon's phone number. He was arrested on September 19, 1934. The trial of the century commenced on January 2, 1935 in Flemington, New Jersey to a crowd of 60,000 observers. It lasted 5 weeks. After 11 hours of deliberation, the jury found Bruno Richard Hauptmann guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced him to death. On April 3, 1936, Bruno Richard Hauptmann was put to death in the electric chair. Thanks to the combined efforts of local, state, and federal investigators, the crime of the century had been cracked, providing an answer to one of history's greatest mysteries. Subscribe this channel for more true crime series videos every Sunday. If you like this video, show some love in the form of likes and comments. I'm Paul Joseph here, signing out.